first of all, I loved it. Like, I cried at the end because just, it brought back a lot of, like, skating, because I'm retired now, you could say, and it brought back a lot of that, and I loved it. I really did.
Thank you. Yes, I know. I do hope that people cry. Obviously, you don't make something hoping that people cry, but I cry when I watch that movie still. So, yeah, definitely. If you can experience what Emily experiences, right? The having to retire.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's definitely like heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. There. Yeah. Okay. So, you said you're not a skater.
Oh my gosh, no! I can barely skate. It's like
so you've never been a skater or anything?
No. I'm from Miami, Florida. Didn't do sports, so this was a whole new world for me. And now I have so much more respect for skaters. I hate to say this, people, and I'm not talking for everybody, but I think there's a large group of people who kind of dismiss figure skating sometimes, or they just have like preconceived notions about what they think it is. And I was one of those people. And even when you think, skating's hard, like people fall, there's a reason people are falling on the ice. I don't think it still registers how hard it is. So, yeah, I have major respect for you.
Thank you. So then what got you into this topic? What intrigued you about skating? And why Synchro over solo?
I know. So, I was looking to start a documentary. Like, I'm like, I need to make my own film. I'd been working on other people with their films. And my friend of mine, Nicole Davies, who eventually became the producer on the film, she's a synchronized skater. And for years, she would tell me, I'm a synchro skater, and I didn't care. And, we worked together a summer job at American University, which is where I met her. And then at some point, she's like, oh, I'm going to a national championship. And she comes back, and she's like, oh, yeah, we're champions. And I really just didn't care. And then finally, years later, she got me to go to one of the exhibitions. I was filming it a little bit. And when I saw it after, I'm like, oh, my gosh, Nicole, this is the coolest thing. Why didn't you tell me? And she's like, I've been trying to tell you. And it's what I think many synchro skaters have that problem, is that it's hard to get people to come and see it. People know about singles and pairs and ice dance because it's in the Olympics. But synchro, chances are you either know about it or you don't. There's nowhere in between. Some people are like, yeah, I know about synchro. I'm like, but do you? Because seriously, like, I follow the Olympics. I think I'm down with most sports. And even then I still had no clue. But I think it was just so fascinating. I couldn't even tell you what it was at first. Obviously, it's very visual, right? It's cool. You've got all these people doing these things on the ice. And when you're in an arena, and it doesn't have to be a big ice arena, you hear it and feel it in a way that you can't experience it, in a movie. Like, literally, it's like a wall of wind, it kind of just swishes by. And it's just like this multi-sensory experience. I'm like, oh my God, is there a movie about this? And if not, we've got to make one. And that's how I started. And that was over 3 years ago. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. How did you decide to go for the approach that was, because I noticed that it was like, a young group, the Team USA, the Girls on Senior, and then the, older group. How did you decide to go for that approach?
Well, it was not my plan originally, right? I think, when I started making the documentary, I thought in many ways it would be a traditional sports documentary where, you try to follow some of the elite athletes and, see what happens in a season. But I think the challenge with Synchro, number one, is nobody knows about it. So I had to do some of that, we got to explain what synchronized skating is. And as I did earlier drafts of the film where I got into like more of the rules, the more I gave you rules, the more people wanted more rules. I'm like, wait, this is not about the rules. Really, like, you need to understand how to appreciate the sport, but that's not really what it's about. And, in my course of trying to figure out, when I was filming, I filmed more than I thought I knew that would end up in the film. And, some people just naturally stood out, right? Like, hey, Heidi and the Maine Downeasters, they're like, they reached out to me. They sent us a Facebook message when we did our first Indiegogo. They're like, hey, we're Maine's only synchro team. You should come check us out. And I reached out, and I'm like, well, let me find out who these people are. And I went up for a weekend, and I'm like, oh my God, these people are so much fun. Like, did I think Heidi would be the main character? Absolutely not. I knew going into it, Emily early on would probably turn out to be one. But, her sister, Katie, who's also in the documentary and not in it that much, was, I thought, going to be one of the other main characters, right? And it became just an issue of access. And, like, look, I think the elite sports angle is very much, it's a good way to do it. But I found there was so much more interesting stuff with Heidi, with the young kids, with the middle-aged women on the Fraserettes, with Peggy. And that's what makes synchro so special, is that you don't age out of it. You don't have to retire. Yes, you might have to retire from the, elite teams, but you can continue it. This could stay your passion really, however long you want.
No, yeah, I love that though. I love the fact that you showed that and how you can't like grow out of it. You can continue to do this. It was really awesome. So, why did you choose Emily and the Crystalettes rather than like, any of the other teams?
Part of it is access with a documentary, right? Like, I think everyone was always really friendly with me. A lot of people talked to us, but ultimately I needed people who would just let me be there more than I think, And so with Emily and the Crystalettes, they were one of the first teams we went to go film. And actually Nicole Davies, the producer on the film, she was a former Crystalette, so she had some more access there and some more connections. And, Emily's from Frederick, Maryland, which is really close to where I live in Baltimore, even though she was living in Michigan. So I was at least closer to her mom, and she would occasionally come home. So, and really it's just like, it was the easier thing, but also Emily is an excellent person to film, right? Like, she has this just really dynamic and this really positive message. And, so it just happened naturally. It's like honestly, I still didn't even know. At some point I'm like, Emily, you might be like a main character. Like, I knew she would be in it, but I know she would be like the main character till the very end. I'm like, I need to come back for one more interview. And she's like, oh, really? Okay. Like, she was totally game with it. And so you can, she's just, honestly, it's people who want you to film them, the people you want to film. People, it's not hard, right? Like, I don't want it to be like banging on doors. Hey, let me come film another practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Has Emily seen it? Has Heidi seen it yet?
Oh yeah, they've all seen it.
Yeah.
I held out, with Heidi and Emily, like till like almost the very end. Some of the other people had seen, people who are not as big of characters had seen some earlier versions. And yes, I was worried, right? Because, it's obviously it's their life. And, I shared it with them. And Emily, I think, had to watch it a couple times. Because for Emily, it's especially hard. Like you said, she retired, right? Like that feeling that you had. I think that takes her back to that. Now she's 2 years removed from it. But still, obviously she wants to be skating, right? And yeah. Heidi too. Heidi, they loved it. They're huge fans. And they're happy to have been a part of it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So you said this, and then Emily also says it at one point in the movie, how there's such like little history accessible in the sport. So how did you had some great like 1956 Hawkettes footage. How did you get that?
Oh man, that was work, like, cause there is no book. There is like, you can like kind of Google synchronized skating and get like a one pager that US Figure Skating puts out. But like, there really isn't like a history book written on it. So it was literally like, all right, you call it. I mean, everybody knows the Ann Arbor Figure Skating Club. It was founded there. So you call there, you start making connections. Someone introduced me to somebody else, and Dr. Richard Porter. They had tried to petition him to get him into the World Figure Skating Hall of Fame a couple of years ago. So someone sent me all like the documentation for that, which is a lot of that early history, which is how I met Peggy McDonald, who again I wouldn't know would be such a big player, because at the time I just thought, oh, she must have skated with him in the 50s. I didn't know she went on to coach the first ever national champions of the sport. Like, and so thanks to her, and literally I got a hold of Dr. Porter's daughter by writing a letter that I sent in the mail. I didn't even have an email. I'm like, well, let's just use the U.S. Postal Service, which, by the way, we need it. And I'm like, and she wrote back to me. And so that's how I got some of those early photos. I know that there's footage out there that I still could never find, because, like, I would love some moving pictures of that. But, photos are pretty good. I'll take that.
Yeah. No, and that was cool that you had Peggy and stuff too. I was going to ask you how you got in touch with her. So there were like a ton of great messages and like reasons why Synchro was special. What do you think is like the biggest one that you wanted people to get out of it, like you personally?
Yes, Synchro is a very special sport for many reasons. And I'm taking this like as a non-skater. So this is my real big message is, this is what it looks like when we have female dedicated spaces. It doesn't matter what the activity is, the sport, it really just creates really confident women. And, sometimes people get upset when I say that, because it's not that I'm against men, absolutely not. I just know, as someone who didn't grow up having an opportunity like this, I wish like my teenage self could have had it, could have grown into that confidence. Because, I think the reason Emily stood out to me is like, man, how is like a 22-year-old so confident? Like sometimes I would look at him like, man, I'm almost 20 years older than you. You've got it more together than I do. And that's what always really impressed me. And I really couldn't put my finger on it early on, but it's just all these women helping young girls and older women. I look to Heidi and Peggy, and they're like my role models. Like, I want to be 67 or 70 plus with Peggy and like doing what I want to do. Like, we always see Heidi and Peggy in very active roles, Heidi's either skating, she's driving a boat, whatever. I don't think it's the right verb for driving a boat, but you know what I'm saying. She's like picking ice off of off the car. Peggy's always driving, and even she's on skates. Like, it's something we just don't see older women, fully realized women, doing what it is they want to do. So that to me is the message. Like, we need more of these spaces. We need to help women, grow into themselves. And the biggest takeaway is that we can do anything individually together. You need that support, from a community to make things happen.
No, you're right. I mean, I feel like even as an individual skater, I look at the confidence I saw in this movie. It really changed my perspective because, I think I'm fairly confident with like my coaching and everything, but I could see the difference between having people to share it with. And I almost wish I had that because I didn't. I was alone all the time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally different. Yeah. So you knew about synchronized skating, right?
I knew about, my best friend did it. She was on Skyliners. She was her team was literally on, I saw her team in your film at Natural.
Yeah.
She was there,
Yeah.
which is really cool. I think they came in second, if I remember correctly, but she would tell me about it, and I had friends who would tell me about synchronized, that you should do it. I don't know. It just wasn't my thing.
Right.
I liked being more independent, but like at this point in my life, I would want to do that. I feel like I would choose synchro now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I joke all the time. Like, I couldn't afford to get hurt when I was making this movie, and now it's kind of hard with COVID. But as soon as I can get to an ice rink and take some skating lessons, I will eventually join like an open masters probably, because I'm not going to be very good. But it's not too late. That's the beauty. You can still go skate synchro.
It's not. It's really cool. You also mentioned the Olympics a lot. That was like a big thing in it. Is that another message you wanted to get out? Like what that would mean for synchro?
Yeah, like I think, and obviously I'm not an expert in synchro, but it seems like the sport can only go so far until it has Olympic support, right? Because these are athletes, who are training at the highest level, but if you don't have that financial support, how do you maintain that, right? And I think that's kind of what happened with Emily, and we don't really talk about it that much, but Emily finished school. She can't stay a synchro skater forever and become an adult, so what do? You leave it, right? Now, if you have the synchro, if you have the Olympics, that helps, with the financial incentive and stuff. I think the other thing is that they, it was close to kind of getting in, which was the word on the street when I was making the movie. I was kind of hoping I was going to have that happy ending, like, oh, I got into the Olympics. But, there's a lot of like roadblocks to it. And one of it is that the Winter Olympics are smaller than the Summer Olympics. So to bring in a team sport that's going to bring in 16 skaters plus the 4 alternates, plus the coaching staff and all the people that kind of come with it, especially for a sport that nobody already knows exists, like it's a challenge. Like, what's going to come first? But word on the street, is that the next time the U.S. hosts, there's a good chance, fingers crossed, because the host country actually has a big say on what sport comes in. So, but I think I'm throwing it out there because one of the purposes of the movie is to increase awareness about the sport with the goal of hopefully seeing it one day, in the Olympics.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I've heard the rumors about that too. You had some great shots on the ice during practice. It looks like from Emily's perspective. What did you use for that? Was it
that was a GoPro. We had a couple different cameras. The one that I think when she's doing the lift, that was a GoPro. We had her hold like a little Osmo too when she did some like more casual skating with her and her sister. And then the very end of the scene in the movie, she's got this camera looking right at her. There's kind of like a rig that's around her waist holding a camera pointed right at her. So we tried a couple different things. And this is where I wish I had been a skater, because man, if I could have skated fast, like you'd probably do a great job filming. I just couldn't keep up.
Yeah, I have done some skating on the ice before.
That's awesome.
And then what about the competitions? Were you at all of them and you shot them from the stands?
We were at all of them. The nationals that Emily competed, we couldn't film that because of rights. So that was like footage from U.S. figure skating that we had licensed, but we were there. I was there filming her mom and stuff. But yeah, we definitely traveled a lot. Mostly spent my time like in New England and in Michigan, but we went out to Oregon for that. So it was fun. And I have to say, filming synchronized skating is very hard because people are moving so fast. And if you don't know the routines, you don't know where they're going to land, right? Yeah. So by the end of the season, you kind of start getting it. But like I wasn't with them that much either to like know the routines that well, right? So it was a lot, it was tough.
Gotcha. Yeah, and there's a big group of them.
Right.
That would be hard.
Yeah.
How has the film been received in other festivals so far? It's been out?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, right now with COVID, it's so hard. The film premiered in March, and we got to do 2 in-person screenings before COVID closed everything, and we did win Best of Fest at the DC Independent. And then, we were very early to switch to the online format, and I embrace any way that I can get the movie in. And ultimately, we just want people to see it and learn about the sport. We get a lot of positive reviews, and a lot of people love it. And so I think it's working. We're working on getting it on PBS. It's definitely going to be in PBS in Maryland, but we're working on getting it nationally and just continuing the film festival circuit. And ultimately, I'd like to get it out to figure skating clubs, because I think, figure skating clubs, if they have a synchro team, people tend to know about it, but there's a lot of figure skating clubs that don't have synchro. And look, not everyone's going to make it to a senior, junior level, but for the younger developmental, even for the old, people who just want to have fun, it's a great way to stay in shape and make friends. I think there's an opportunity just to grow synchro more. So we'll hope to help with that too.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. Yeah. All right. It was really awesome talking to you.
Thank you. Likewise. I'm sorry I'm not there. I wish we could be there in person.
I know. It's crazy.
All right. Well, thank you.
I'm Sydni Frisch. This was Angela Pinaglia.
Pinaglia.
Okay. I'm
sorry. It's okay. It's a mouthful.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
I figure he'll stop recording. But yeah, that's so cool that you are also a skater. So
yeah,
I think you can appreciate it in a way that a lot of people can't. So I'm glad to hear that you liked it, because I think some skaters just aren't about the synchro. That's what
I know. And see, I was always not like that, only because I had 2, my best friend, she's on Team USA, and then my other friend who I haven't seen in a while, but she was on the junior team when I was younger. And she wanted me to do it so bad my whole life. She would always, her mom would bug my mom and be like, do synchro. And yeah, I mean, I've never gotten to actually go to a competition or anything, and I want to now.
Well, it was a bummer. This year, the World Championship was actually going to be in Lake Placid, not too far from you. And I was very excited because we were actually going to play the movie there. I don't know if they're going to have it here next year, if you ever do get a chance, though, because I think, obviously we have some really great teams, but there's some really great international teams, too. I'm dying to go to, a world competition.
Yeah, that's what my friend did. She went to Worlds. She was, in Austria last year. I can't remember where else. No, awesome. But Lake Placid is such a great rink. I've competed only once, but I loved it.
So much fun. Yeah, it's a great town. Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you so much. This was great. You made it very pleasant to talk about the movie.
Will you be at the film festival next week?
No. Oh. No. Okay. It's just so hard to travel. Actually, I ended up having to travel to Florida for a funeral, which is really where I am now. So, no. Are you guys still able to do in-person screenings? Yeah, we are doing some. So.
All right.
Well, I hope it goes well. Yeah. Thanks. All right. Well, thank you so much. You take care. It was nice meeting you.
You too. It was nice meeting you. Bye.